A population of rabbits in a lab, P of x, can be modeled by the function P of x equals 20, parentheses 1.014, raised to the x power, where x represents the number of days since the population was first counted. So part 1 of the question says, explain what the 20 and the 1.014 represent in the context of the problem. So this is an exponential function, and I know that because the variable x is in the exponent. So an exponential function doesn't just have to have an exponent, it has to have a variable in the exponent. So if this were a 2, that would not be exponential, that would actually be quadratic. So when I look at what that 20 means, that's the y-intercept of this function. That is the initial value. So they said the number of days since the population was counted. So the first count of that population, there were 20 rabbits. When they first counted the rabbits, they had 20 of them. Next, the 1.014. The x is measured in days. So the 1.014 tells us the change, in this case, the increase in the number of rabbits per day on average. Now, for the second part, it says determine to the nearest tenth the average rate of change from day 50 to day 100. So I want to put P of x in my graphing calculator, but notice the graphing calculator uses F of x. So I'm just going to type this equation into a graph page. So home screen, new doc, say no, and add a graph page. So my function starts with 20, parentheses 1.014, close your parenthesis, to the x power, and press enter. Now I can do menu 4, letter A, zoom fit, and this gives me an idea of what my graph looks like. But the best thing about this graphing calculator, all these windows are connected. So if I press Control Doc and add a calculator page, this can actually help me to calculate the slope. So to calculate slope, it's the change in y over the change in x. So I know I want a fraction. In the top, I'm going to say f1, and see how that went bold, of 100. So that's my output of the function for 100 days, minus the f1 of 50. Now, if my y is the f1 of 100, then my x is 100. If my y is the f1 of 50, my x is 50. Put a decimal, because I want a decimal in my answer, and press enter. So I want to put this entire calculation on my paper to show where these values came from. Now, the only other thing that I need to do, they tell me to round to the nearest tenth. So I want to remind you of how to round in the calculator. So menu, this is a number, and we're going to number tools, choice 8, choice 1 for round. And so we just go up and steal that decimal. And now I need a comma to say I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, which means one decimal past, one number past the decimal point. So I'm going to put a 1 there, and it rounds to 0.8. So here's my expression. Now I can say the average rate of change is 0.8. And that's full credit for question number 2.